Hello, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast channel. My name is Jed, and how are you going? I hope you're having a good time. Now, we are exploring, we have been exploring how we can use analogy to understand the New Testament of the Bible. And we pointed out that even though you may not consider yourself a believer, or identify with any particular Christian or Judaic, Jewish religion, it still has some effect on you because it affects our culture. It affects our culture, our institutions, the thoughts, the ideas of many people in our culture. And our job involves understanding the influence the beliefs that we carry have on us, discovering what they are, getting to the root source of them, understanding them, and through that process of understanding, purifying ourselves from their influence. So, last time, we explored the key moment in the story of Jesus Christ. What made him decide he was enlightened and caused him to start his ministry, his enlightenment experience. We were asked questions on how it relates to the figures that emerged according to the account, the figures that emerged from that same luminosity, Elijah and Moses. We were asked questions about how whether or not they had a brilliant light of being experience or mind experiencing itself as divine luminosity. How did Moses relate to it? How did Elijah relate to it? Peter was there. Peter wanted to make 3 tabernacles, and tabernacles are supposedly the place where the divine dwells. And Jesus's response to that is, nope. Don't tell anybody about what happened here. So we could make an analogy between Peter and Jesus in their response to that experience. So, and we can also ask the question, hey, if all human beings are in the same game, in the same situation, that is, we inherit beliefs as we are young and grow up, from our family, influenced by our, of course, culture and religion, as we just said, to make sense of ourselves in the world before we had learnt how to use understanding ourselves. And of course, the dialectic to ask questions in a rational way, to explore truth and discern truth from what's false. Seeing as we're all in that boat, our purpose is to learn the art of understanding and apply it to our beliefs to free ourselves. Oh, hello, Bumble. Welcome. Hooray. You've arrived right in time for the spiel. Spiel? So, we all get beliefs when we are little babies. And we get those beliefs before we have learnt how to use language and self-reflection. And those beliefs we carry, they're unsuspected because we didn't put them into words, but they allowed us to survive our upbringing. It might be very dangerous if you grew up in a house where your parents are Muslim to say as a 4-year-old, it seems this whole Muslim thing is a load of crap, Dad. Could be very dangerous. And of course, we didn't have the skills at that age as well. We were in a dependent relationship, so our parents get to play king, priest of the house. King, because in our current world, to be in charge, you don't need any understanding, any expertise. There's no obligation to use it to benefit the people that you are ruling. Unfortunately, that's what we discovered was breaking the natural law. So you can just claim your beliefs are true, because isn't it all relative? Whatever feels true to you is true, and if it feels true to Donald Trump that people should be put in concentration camps if they disagree with him, then that's just as true as anything else. And of course, we say priest king because the same happens for religion. If it's L. Ron Hubbard's belief that he gets to do whatever to all the women, then that's just as true because his belief is God wants him to do that. Or it's God's belief that the Jews get to kill the Palestinians, or it's God's belief that the Christians get to kill the Muslims, and so on and so on and so on. It's a way of venerating your personal beliefs as though they are true and insisting that other people follow them so you can cosplay a Noah. Pretend you are wise when you are ignorant. The fool. So, whether we like it or not, every human being is in that situation where that is the situation of our birth. Anyone raised with parental figures had to go through that process and therefore walked away with unsuspected false beliefs about themselves and reality that limited their entire life, caused their cycle of problems, but may have allowed them to survive the conditions of that upbringing. When we are old enough to use language and self-reflection, it is our purpose as human beings. Now, we could even say any intelligent being who has evolved to this stage of self-reflection and language. It's our purpose to use understanding to seek our highest goals of the truth of self. What are you? Mind. What are you perceiving through? What's your tool? And reality. Where are we? So that's seeking an answer to that question legitimately, with excellence. And we've been learning about what excellence is in the last few episodes. Knowledge of the ideal, understanding of its aspects, being able to judge deviations from that ideal, like a physician, the ideal body, and oh, this person is this far removed. Oh my goodness. Being able to prescribe a treatment to close the gap between where they are, where the subject is, and the ideal. Support them through that treatment process through time so they can benefit. So that's mastership. We seek mastership of understanding in true philosophy, what we learn here. And as we do that, we will surface our counterattacks. Our blocks or problems are problems specifically because they block that process. If it blocked you from, I don't know, eating too much cake, it wouldn't be a problem, would it? It has to block you from your true purpose, benefit, and mastery. Therefore, in seeking this excellence, as we do here, because we seek to understand a book written through a mastery of understanding, a master of understanding himself, the author. We are learning to read, and we are discovering that in learning to read properly, not interpretation, to me, this book means that Jesus is in my heart. To me, Harry Potter means that Allah is the... No, that's just interpretation. That's what they might have told you at school. What does this book mean to you? That's not reading. In learning to read, we are discovering through using analogy, by learning to understand what similes, metaphors, and allegory are, types of analogy, we can discover the root analogy that causes similes and metaphors that the author is himself seeing through. And we can use that analogy to understand where we're at and understand where we're going. A is to B, where we're at, what we can see. A shepherd is to a sheep, anyone can see that, is like a king is to his subjects, where we are going, where we are learning. Now, the kind of mastery we are after is beyond even a king to his subjects, a philosopher to his own soul. How do we become rulers of our own soul? Our job is to use that to not only reach excellence, but surface the blocks that will arise as we pursue the excellence of this and apply that standard to anything else we're interested in. seek mastery of any art or craft you're in. Surface those blocks to discover the unsuspected false beliefs about ourselves and the world that are false and limiting and prevent you from reaching that level of excellence, keeping you within the belief tradition, the self-protecting mechanism of our beliefs. What we've discovered in reading is it's the most powerful force in the universe, such that there are many people, especially in the Eastern spiritual traditions, who've had an experience of reality, mind itself. They call it an enlightenment experience. Mind turning away from your physical senses and experiencing mind itself. And what happens? They still have their problems. In fact, often they seem more entrenched or confident about their problems, because the activity of using understanding to surface, understand, and thereby purify your false beliefs is different from the activity of using understanding to reach the truth of self and reality, both in direct experience and to turn around and understand that direct experience and integrate that direct experience, and maybe even go beyond to what is beyond experience to know the self. Two different activities, but both use understanding. So the removal of ignorance and the attaining of wisdom, two different activities. If the word philosophy means is from the words philos sophia, love of wisdom, we could say Philodianoia, love of understanding, is greater than philosophy, because understanding is what we need to reach wisdom and to turn around and understand it, and maybe even to go through it, because if there's something higher than experience, you could only discover that using understanding, not with experience. And understanding is necessary to remove your blocks as well and purify yourself from your problems that you've been in since childhood. Manifesting in your dreams especially. The stories in our dreams are most often stories to help us discover those false beliefs that keep us in a kind of loop of fate, it's called. Therefore, Philodianoia, we could even say, is higher than philosophy. Which is important because the word philosophy has been hijacked by people who, instead of doing this, real philosophy, think philosophy is a love of beliefs. Philodoxia, a love of your own opinions. So most academic philosophers tell students to read about Kant's opinions and Hegel's opinions and Nietzsche's opinions. They never find the ideal. They never reach truth. Therefore, they're never able to judge whether or not Kant got it right, or what level of development of understanding or logos did Kant reach, and what kind of belief did he have that blocked his development. You don't learn that. It's garbage. Modern academic philosophy is horseshit, by definition, because it's not only stupid, it's the opposite of philosophy. Because you walk away with all of these quotes, no one will ever ask you about Hegel and Nietzsche or Kant in your life, but if you ever have to defend your beliefs, you might pull out a quote that services that need. It's not me that says that the Jews are the chosen people and we get to murder the Palestinian children. This philosopher or this religious person said it. So, not finding the truth of whether or not that action is just or beneficial to that child that they have rulership over, they have claimed rulership over, whether or not it's beneficial to shoot them in the head for fun. Not discovering the truth through understanding and using that truth to benefit that child. Instead, pulling quotes that they've learnt in their upbringing, in their education, that support the beliefs that they already carry from childhood, further entrenching themselves in their ignorance. That's religion, that's modern philosophy, that's any system where belief is allowed to rule. And we've discovered belief is the distortion of understanding. To claim rulership because someone when you were young appeared to be knowing. So it was a kind of enlightenment experience. When you were young, someone appeared wise and knowing, and they presented you with the truth. They said, son, don't trust those Palestinians, or don't trust women, or don't trust the crazy Mormons with their magic underpants. And you think, wow, I'm really being let in on a secret teaching. A Dharma, secret teaching about reality in a kind of fake enlightenment experience. So with our understanding of how human problems are formed, we can understand the New Testament. The moment where Jesus thought he became enlightened, we can apply everything we've just said that we've understood from this book to Jesus' experience. Did he get it through understanding, yes or no? Did it remove his problems, yes or no? Were his problems caused by his upbringing and religious beliefs, which were Jewish, yes or no? Did he use his peak experience to reflect on truth and develop understanding? Or the other thing humans can use to make sense of the world? Not understanding, but belief. Did he use that peak experience to justify the beliefs he was carrying? Is that what is meant by him talking to Elijah and Moses in that brilliant light experience? What's the significance of it being on a mountain? What's the significance in Jesus' religious beliefs and upbringing of a tabernacle? Did Moses and Elijah have tabernacles? Because this is the moment where Jesus decided, well, I'm wise now, I'm going to start my ministry. So, understanding the New Testament through analogy, by comparing it analogously to what we know about belief and understanding, which applies to all human beings, all intelligent beings at this stage of development. And also applying it analogously to his own tradition. Elijah is to Moses, is to Jesus in what way? And also comparing it with Peter, who wanted to share it with other people. Which also ties into his Jesus' use of parables, as we are learning how to use analogy to read and also to write. Our author has a understanding of a greater understanding of reality that we have yet to access or master to the level he's mastered, and he is using this story, this conversation at this coffee shop between Aaliyah, Joseph, and Harry, and the elements within, to create an analogy of what exists in the higher. The difference is, with analogy, or what we call parable, the text gives you the answers, or within the text you can find the terms to match. And we've been looking at the allegory of Plato's cave, because Plato does the same thing. To talk about man's ignorance from childhood, seeing the physical world only through a projection of personal beliefs, Plato, in Book 7 of the Republic, creates an allegory of a cave. An allegory also has to have a task. His task is to leave the cave of ignorance and go out into the upper world. And, of course, there are stages of development within the upper world as well. So Plato's allegory of the cave and the upper world isn't literal, but for every object in the cave, for every simile or metaphor in the cave, balloons, there has to be a corresponding term or relationship in the book that you can plug in to solve the puzzle. because the whole republic is itself an analogy. The question Socrates is asked is, what is the excellence or justice of our soul? What's our highest state of being? Socrates says, well, the soul is very small and hard to see, so let's blow it up, like with a magnifying glass, to the size of a city, and create an analogy between a city-state and a soul. To talk about how we go from a ignorant or foolish or unjust soul, how we go from there, learn what we need to learn, to arrange ourselves, the elements of not the city, but our soul, in a way that gives rise to not only these peak experiences we call enlightenment or the brilliant light of being, or the kingdom of God is the analogy Jesus used, but how do we understand it too? And use it as a model of the ideal soul or state of mind so that we can function artfully. As, metaphor again, a physician uses the ideal of the healthy body to diagnose the condition of his subjects and uses his knowledge and understanding of it to benefit his subjects by closing that gap between where they are and the ideal. So too, our just functioning as human beings would be similar, but on a higher level, with the direct apprehension of mind itself, non-physically, because it isn't physical. Many physical people or beings participate it at levels of evolution. But to perceive that ideal, experience it, and not just stay there in the experience, what Plato calls dwelling in the isles of the blessed, but to use it to perfect our understanding and also turn around and help others. To be able to diagnose the difference between this ideal state of mind or justice and where the person you are talking to is at, and what you might say to them or prescribe to them to close that gap, which benefits not you as the ruler, but them as the subject. And of course, we saw that this is the natural law. If we allow rulers to benefit themselves and not the subjects, we face human extinction, which is our current situation now. We have believers with no understanding, ruling capitalism, ruling the conservatism in politics, and ruling religion in the realm of spirituality. These are all people, religious beliefs, Elon Musk's stupid Nazi beliefs, Donald Trump's stupid, grifting, Nazi, white supremacist, racist beliefs ruling our world. No understanding, no knowledge of the ideal, and they only use it to benefit themselves because they can't benefit others. And we are seeing millions and millions of innocent people being slaughtered every day for their personal benefit, both financial benefit and the pleasure that they seem to derive from inflicting pain as a standard of what it means to be knowing. Sadism. So that's just going to end our species and destroy our planet. However, by understanding analogy and how it applies to rulership, a physician is to his subjects, as a shepherd is to his sheep, as a king is to his subjects, and then understanding the different levels. A shopkeeper to his customer, not quite as high a level. A thief to the gang of thieves, not even still lower, but there's definitely a hierarchy. In understanding that analogy itself, the exercise of thought, understanding, well, exercise of understanding, contains within itself the root relationship of ruler to subject, and that requires benefiting the subject. We have discovered the natural law, the law of reality. If we don't follow the natural law, we face what we are facing as we allow belief-based rulers, or fascists we call them, to harm the subjects they're supposed to care for their own benefit, causing the destruction of our planet, the torture and abuse of our fellow human beings, and the extinction of our species very shortly. If we do follow the natural law, which also means finding everybody who has been breaking the natural law and holding them to account so that they can discover their own source of their distortion or gap from the ideal. Who convinced Elon Musk of his Nazi shit? Who convinced Donald Trump of his racist shit, grifting shit, sexist shit, violent shit, and so on and so on, so they can turn themselves around, because every individual soul is here for a reason, but also so we can address the conditions within our species so that we don't have a Nazi problem again like we're having right now. That's our purpose, of course, to understand all beliefs that surface within the human race and understand the collective, well, not the collective, the universal ideal of truth and understanding. Just as for every individual, it's also the same game. Find your own variety of false beliefs you're carrying, address all of them, understand the nature of belief, understand the nature of understanding, and perfect that with mastership. Which means, as this author, Pierre Grimes, is teaching us, so too we can teach others. A is to B, as B is to C. That's the mean analogy. That's the passing on of the true teaching, the Logos. That's our purpose. You could say that's our, if fate keeps you trapped in the horrors of belief, then participating in this Dharma, learning the Logos with mastery so you can help others as well, and our species, that would be our destiny or purpose. Pretty good book, huh? All that in a book. Can you believe it? And it's not even written in ancient Greek times, so the conversation being had in this little cafe, you can relate to very easily. Oh my goodness, it's just like me having coffee with my friends. Speaking of which, thank you for my friends who are here today. And cheers. Here's my coffee. So that's where we are. And those are those questions that will help us. Notice, we're not being told how to understand the origin of Christianity and its relationship to Judaism by understanding the nature of the soul or psyche of Jeebus. We are being given questions. The asking of questions systematically, step by step, that's the dialectic. That's one of the activities of understanding. The other one that we've been learning, analogy. And then balloons, hooray. The other aspect is those questions are designed for you to discover the analogy yourself. Now we are learning it as applied to, Jesus's problem and metaphysics, which means this systematic step-by-step asking of questions that can help the subject discover the analogies present to gain their own understanding, when sufficient, can free them from their false beliefs by recognizing their false beliefs were a kind of false analogy, as my world is at home was to me when I tried to speak up and I got told off. So too, the world will shut me down if I speak up and seek my goals, is a false analogy that you are projecting onto the world if you have that kind of false belief. That's our projection. Belief operates through interpretation, which involves projecting what isn't there and being blocked from what is, because we are carrying a false analogy as the world is at home when we were 4 or 5, so too the outside world is, and that's just not true. That way of thinking might have allowed us to survive saber-toothed tigers before we could reason, hundreds of thousands of years ago. So it's a kind of solution that no longer applies in our stage of development. So it's not a blame game, it's understanding. So, in theory, we could ask people a set of questions that can help them discover the false analogy of their beliefs that's causing their problems. That's philosophical midwifery. The use of the dialectic specifically to close the gap from their false beliefs to true thinking and understanding. The other use of the dialectic is, well, regular dialectic. The use of those questions and answers to discover analogies that can help us understand the truth. Not purify the false, that's a different activity, but understand the truth. Now, you can't do one without the other, of course. The more you understand the truth of understanding, the better you can understand its distortion with beliefs. The more you seek mastery of understanding, the more your beliefs will stick their head up and say, "No, not in my house. You're a Christian. You don't ask questions. That's what hell is for. People who ask questions. You're a Mormon. You have to believe Jesus was a white American guy. Otherwise, no magic underpants for you. You're a Pentecostal person. If you ask questions, you don't get to go to the picnic on Sunday with all the other Pentecostals." All of these voices, instructions, Socrates calls it the kaka daemon, the bad inner voice, are not literal. We had problems because we allowed ourselves to be ruled by this voice, the voice of ignorance, the voice of belief claiming leadership, which is of course prejudice. To allow yourself to be ruled by beliefs is prejudice. We saw in the text. But if we apply it analogously, that is, all of the voices, the sounds, the images in our fantasies, our distractions, our daydreams, and our night dreams, they're all analogous. They're all analogies about that origin scene where you first learnt those false beliefs. So don't take them literally, but our job is to discover the underlying hidden analogy that is the source of our problems, our rulership by beliefs. So, just as the author is asking us a series of questions step by step, that's the dialectic, to uncover a hidden analogy in the text, dialectic and analogy, so that we can discover the truth about the higher metaphysical realm of mind or consciousness or self beyond that. So too, we could learn a series of questions that could help people discover the false analogy they are carrying from their root unsuspected beliefs about self and reality. So they're symmetrical, there's a symmetry there, there's a beauty there. Of course, that activity is the Orange Book, Philosophical Midwifery, a New Paradigm for Understanding Human Problems. We've read the first 5 chapters, I think, 4 or 5 together. We've been on a break from that, so maybe we'll get back to it soon. But we're still learning about it because, of course, as above, so below. As we learn about understanding for the truth, so too can we discover things about what must be for its complementary activity, surfacing what's false. Bringing us to where we are in the text, and that's the blackboard, and it's broken. Oh my god.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck. Let me fix it. There we go, sort of. There we go. Hooray.
That's funny.
A little bit funny, I suppose. Let's get these guys out of the way. You're not in the book. There are 4 parts. Those guys were in the first 3. Now we're in the section on analogy. So, let's review the questions. Oh, by the way, did we finish the idea about parable? Oh, yes. So this, let me finish this idea. So this, what we're learning about the art, the true art of understanding. So by true art, we mean all the things that we've been learning about what's involved in a true art, knowing the ideal, understanding its aspects, being able to use that to make a diagnosis, offer the treatment, close the gap between where they're at and the ideal to benefit. But we are learning the art of understanding through the questions, dialectic, to discover the hidden analogies, dialectic and analogy. Whereas the parables, Jesus spoke in parables, and he explicitly said, as we read earlier, actually let's read it. It's important to read it in the text when we can. And the key word was lest. He said, lest. I'm not giving everybody else the terms to solve the puzzle. Lest. And it's giving me smallest. Don't want smallest. Okay. It's still giving me smallest. I want lest. Oh. Okay. Why isn't it giving me list? L-E-S-T. Try again. Hold, please. Listen to the oracle tell you something wise. This one?
When you're in a state of wanting to improve, you start perceiving all of the problem.
Yes. So we just said. That's why they're complementary. As you are seeking the standard of excellence and mastery, you surface your problems that you can now address with your new art you've been learning and mastering. Now, last time it worked, we typed in lest. Because Jesus said, I'm not giving them the answer to the parable. All right, we'll just type in parable. Lest. Parable. Here we go. Oh, it was... Okay, it was... Okay. 111. A parable is an allegory whose key terms to solve the allegory are not revealed except to a select inner circle. And for the inner circle, the parable then becomes an allegory or analogy. When Jesus tells his disciples why he uses parables in his teaching ministry, after his light experience, he explains to his disciples, to you has been given the secret to the kingdom of God.
To the kingdom of God. Of God.
But for those outside, everything is in parables. As Jesus goes on to say, it is so that those outside may hear but not understand. Not doing very well, closing the gap between ignorance and understanding is he, if he doesn't want people to understand. Lest, says Jesus in the Gospel of Mark, they should turn again and be forgiven. Now we looked at the words turning around, metanoia, the ancient Greek, that word that word means to ousia, reflect on your state of being, which we are learning to do here. And the word forgiven, ephemi, is not forgiveness, it is purification, a letting go, dissolving of the problem. So it's also important to recognize that these texts have been specifically mistranslated to allow for the idea of violence to be accepted, because how do believers maintain their authority without knowledge and understanding to rule? Violence. Disobey the Americans and we'll bomb your children. Disobey the boss and we will fire you. Choose not to pay the landlord and you will be homeless. Disagree with the priest, imam, minister, rabbi, you will go to hell. And of course, the only way, well, the central way we are taught to accept violence against ourselves and our fellow human beings is it makes you better. It's a lie about art. Why? Because art makes people better, bestows benefit. Punishment is the lie that somehow they will learn a lesson and be made better or forgiven if they repent or suffer in some way, psychically or physically, which usually involves taking their stuff. And some sadist enjoying the infliction of punishment because it gives them a feeling of power, like their parents had over them, instead of removing that sick belief about what it means to be powerful. They look for opportunities to inflict it on others. So they join the military or become a cop or whatever, have their own kids and do it to them, instead of doing their job. So that's punishment. The lie that doing bad things, inflicting suffering, hurting people, stealing their stuff, enslaving them in the prison industrial complex, will somehow make a good thing. Learning, teaching them a lesson, making them better, saving their soul for heaven. Which is, of course, violating the principle of likeness. Like things have like effects. You don't make something hot by freezing it. If you add fire, which has the quality of heat, to an ice cube, you don't make it colder. Why? Oh, because we're not torturing and murdering those innocent Palestinian children for the psychopathic, religious, capitalist, conservative sadists who want to inflict suffering and steal all their land and resources. No, we're teaching Hamas a lesson. Punishment is good, actually. We're just defending ourselves. Very simple, same script forever, for always. It's always the same thing. And we can even see it in the translation of these key terms within Christianity. The three key ones: amartia, missing the mark; metanoia, turning yourself around in self-reflection to adjust your aim; and ephemi, letting go of the problem. Mistranslated as sin, you're not missing the mark, you are innately bad. Repentance, you're not reflecting and turning around to reflect on yourself, you are suffering. And then forgiveness. Ephemi is not, you're now free of your problems. You still have your problems, but the authority says, I forgive you for having problems. It is me who decides that you are acceptable as being a sinner. Not only does it not solve problems, it's a confirmation, or it's a further entrenchment in your problems, and it further entrenches that hierarchical, tyrannical system of oppression whereby the ignorant believer has rulership over you. So important to recognize that here as well. So, bringing us all worth repeating and remembering and telling your friends about, seeing as it's the root cause of all human problems, and understanding it is the purpose for all of us who are alive as human beings. Now that's the what makes me laugh is how simple it is once you say it. But that's where we finished last time. By recognizing that, it is simple and difficult. Simple because if you reflect on each of these points in this metaphysical exploration, it should be simple, which we just did. Simple. Belief bad, understanding good. Fits on a bumper sticker. Understanding necessary. Belief equals human extinction. Belief equals bad relationships. Belief equals unjust soul. Understanding equals human flourishing. Nurturing our species and planet. An ideal relationship that can allow you to reach your higher states of being. And true governance of your own soul. Now that bumper sticker will be a little bit bigger, but it could still fit on an embroidered pillow. And if you are making these amazing quotes and selling them on Etsy, I want 10% on the back end.
Would you like your pudding?
Yes, and by pudding, she means 10% on the back end. Right?
Every smoothie has bananas. All the smoothies have bananas. There's got to be some smoothies that don't have bananas in them.
There's got to be. When you think about it, there's got to be. So, however, but the simple for the wise. Oh, are you wise if you've understood all that? Hopefully, we are 56 episodes into being wise about this book. What's simple for the wise may not be simple for the fool. The fool's simplicity might become wise if he would endure the study of the simple. That's what we've been doing, haven't we? We've been making reality simple. There are two things in reality: things and relationships. What's the most simple way of thinking about reality, therefore? Well, to compare things, you need two things to have a relationship. A is to B. But you also want to compare relationships. C is to D. So, two relationships, each with two terms. The simplest way of understanding. Simplest way of understanding reality. Simplest way of making sense of the root cause of all human problems, belief. The simplest way of, well, we've already done understanding. But see, we're making it simple. And we're having fun.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the
Childlike wonder and whimsy is afoot. So that's where we are. Let's quickly review what we read last time to get the questions in our back pocket, and then let's keep on reading. But I have to turn on my fan, so hold for a second. So, analogy to reflect on. So after we talked about the different examples of the archetypal analogy and how they're all to do with rulership, but we could rank the levels of rulership. Does the kind of rulership that a captain has over his crewmates, does it reach the level of a doctor over his patient? And of course, the big question, if therefore there is a principle that anything that is perfectible has its own art to facilitate that perfection, with all of those qualities we've been discovering is in art and natural law. And if human beings are perfectible, what is the art for human beings of human beings? Second, what is philosophy? What is its knowledge? How does it make its diagnosis? How does it bestow its benefit? So that's where we finished with the exploring of mastership and art and analogy. Oh, okay, there we go. On to reflections on the New Testament. Let's read through this quickly so we have those questions in our back pocket. Now let us take one of those ideas explored in the book that we're reading, such as those found in the New Testament story of the divine luminosity that radiated through Jesus and from which Moses and Elijah emerged, and then talked with Jesus. After witnessing this extraordinary event, Peter asked Jesus if he should build 3 tabernacles, and Jesus responded by saying they should tell no one what they had seen. He said to them,
You should tell no one, Peter. No, Peter. Peter, no. No, Peter. Thou shalt not, Peter. Screw you, Peter. Fuck you, Peter. You shall not tell people what you have seen here.
I wonder why. What an interesting way of being he must have learnt from someone at some stage. I wonder if it's good. I wonder if it's beneficial or artful. Now, if this story has a meaning that is well worth considering analogically, then we will have to ask some questions to bring that analogy to light. That's the dialectic. That's part of what we're here to learn. We're learning about our art. Oh my goodness. You are the best beans and the goodest noodles. To all of you, I say.
You have the most beautiful breasts and the juiciest ass.
That's right. That's what I say. Right, Emma?
That's so funny.
No, I guess it's fun.
I often frequent websites.
Neat. How similar is the story of Moses building a tabernacle with that of Jesus? What was meant by the tabernacle? Why did Moses set out to build it? And what role did it play in Judaism? Jeebus's bleeps. If there is an example of divine luminosity in the Moses story, how similar is it to the Jesus story? These are all the questions that, just to remind us, carry with us and seek to solve in our travels. To carry questions is to be on a quest. Did Elijah play a role in Judaism? Because both Moses and Elijah popped up when he was in that light experience, apparently. If so, what role did Elijah play in Judaism? What works will you have to read to explore this further? Who might you consult with? As you reflect on the miracle stories, would you give this event greater or less significance? Why? Why? So, everything we've been discovering about this moment, how does it relate to the miracles? Now, you might want to take those miracles and arrange them to what was said about them prior to the light experience and after. In the Gospel of Mark, which Luke and Matthew primarily copied, John was doing his own thing. He got on the Paul bandwagon. Paul was that believer who wanted to say, screw Jesus, me actually. God says that I'm the best boy, says Paul. And of course, we talked earlier about the books, Bultmann and the others, where we can discover the Comigia, which are the set of tenets we recognize as modern Christianity, and discover whether or not Jesus said any of them, or whether or not it's all Paul's beliefs. If so, could we say that Paul's effort to bring the circumcised and uncircumcised together under him, Paul was a weirdo, better defines modern Christianity? So modern Christians are Pauline Jews? I don't know, you'd have to find out. So, that's why the Gospel of Mark is what we read. Look at the miracles. How do they fall either side of this light experience? And what role does the light experience and his interpretation of it play in the miracle stories of Jeebus? Consider further. Did a mountain play a central role in each of the stories with Moses and Elijah as well? What role did Moses and Elijah play in Judaism? What would it mean for all three to discuss together as what was supposedly happening? What does it mean that they're discussing, they're talking with each other? If Peter, after witnessing this event, thought it appropriate to build a tabernacle, what would it mean to build three, one for each? Why not just one? What does it mean to have three now? Is there an analogy between these events? What would it mean to say that as Jesus is to the divine luminosity, so too Moses was to the divine luminosity? What would it mean to say that Jesus' role is similar to Moses' role, as Moses' role is similar to Elijah's role? Three-part analogy, or three sets. If God's presence is carried by and through the tabernacle, then what would it mean if three tabernacles were built? Why the secrecy? Why the secrecy? Why? What is it about this event that Jesus would want to keep secret? Why, Jesus? What are you trying to keep secret? What secrets do you have, Mr. Jeebus? Why are you telling Paul? Why did you say Paul to Peter?
Peter. No, Peter. No, Peter. No tabernacle for you, Peter. Don't tell the people, Peter. No. Secrets, Peter. We must have our little secrets, Peter. You and me, Peter. We have our secrets about God. We have our God secrets, Peter.
That's all a direct quote from the Bible. Some are saying, I'm just asking questions here. What would it mean for Jesus to say that to Peter? Why the secrecy? What is it about this event that Jesus would want to keep secret? Notice we are creating a series of questions and setting up analogies to explore our findings. This is the way you can learn to speculate. Try it. And good luck. Call to adventure.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
You're learning to speculate. You're learning to understand. Well, two of the three key belief-based traditions that influence our society and species, claiming rulership over the realm of spirituality, acting all three in opposition to understanding, in opposition to direct experience and wisdom, which we might be seeing in this very story, and acting in direct opposition to the benefit of all human life. You're learning to speculate, to think. Hooray for you!
Call me Kirky.
We're all quirkies today, because we're all off the perkies.
All these people are so stupid.
No, they're not. Not anymore.
The woman? Ugh.
Hey, don't say that about the Oracle.
Don't be disgusting.
Don't be disgusting. Analogy and metaphysics, okay? So from belief to understanding. Metaphysics. Metaphysics is a fancy name of understanding that which is beyond or above, prior to physics. Physics is the physical world. Metaphysics is the world of mind or being. That which is eternal and contains within it the aspects of understanding and the principles and laws of our physical world to maintain them. Therefore, in our quest to know the nature of reality, we're also discovering the ideal of understanding, the very art we're learning to master. Because all of these ideas have to exist somewhere for it to be universally accessible. Are they in a bunch of filing cabinets in the clouds? Or are they all aspects, not forms, there's another mistranslation, aspects of that which is eternal, mind itself, or being? Good thing is, you don't have to believe anyone. You're not supposed to believe anyone. You're supposed to check it out. The opposite of Jesus saying, no, not for the people. True philosophy, or Philodianoia, is yes for the people. Especially for the people. All of the people. It's a win-win.
Win, 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 win.
That's what I said. Win, win, win.
It's a win, 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 win.
Okay, lots of winning.
Come on, dude. That's too vulgar.
No, not really.
Okay, well, I think you should suck my dick and balls. My metaphorical dick and balls.
Well, that might be.
I'm gonna get your ass.
Hey, not my ass. Not my ass. Right. Nonsense. Let's keep going. Reflecting on analogy brings you into a new kind of thinking. It is like finding a strange doorway that if you can pass through it, you will find it opens into a land that has its own kind of wonder. Ooh. These fundamental ideas of metaphysics, or the fundamental ideas of metaphysics, are one and many. And from each of these ideas, it is possible to derive others, as if they were pearls strung together on a single strand that we could call a class string. So, for there to be anything you can imagine, one. Has to be one. For there to be anything, because that's one thing, whatever it is. Can't be creation without there being more than one. So the primary ideas in creation or reality, one and many. But also, tracing it back to the origin, we can see how the others are derived from that, or unfold from that. Like pearls on a necklace. Thus we can speak... Oh, okay, keep going. Thus we can speak of the one as the string or set having members such as oneness, identical, same, similar, and like. Equally, we can say that there's another string called the class of many, having members such as manyness, different, other, dissimilar, and unlike. And this ties into what we have been discovering ourselves. Because we've been learning the activities of understanding, analogy and dialectic, but also what terms do you use? Can't be physical things because it's understanding. It doesn't have a physical object. It's applied to all physical objects. It would be like wearing rose-tinted glasses. You can't see all the colors because there is red in the way. There can't be anything in the way, so what are the terms? Here they are. We call them the selfers because as they exist as aspects of mind, we are talking about the adjective itself. We are turning the adjective into a noun. Not beauty as an adjective that describes beautiful things, and you know what I'm going to say, beautiful paintings, beautiful puppies, and beautiful streamers.
Come on, baby.
Come on, baby. But beauty itself, what is it itself as a noun or a substantive? So we call them the selfers. So we've discovered three primary categories: things that are goodnesses that we desire with that aspect of our soul that desires inwardly, represented with our belly as a metaphor, of course. Beauty itself, justice itself, excellence itself, reality itself. We've been discovering that the symposium is how we can reach our excellence or our reach the truth of reality by seeking our desire or following our desire for beauty. Symposium is the yoga of love and beauty. We've been learning how to use analogy to unpack it and get the message, get the yoga, get the method. We've been learning about how to use analogy to learn about how to get the justice we desire in the Republic. Our justice of our soul and reality. To know justice itself. Which would be the standard for anyone who wants rulership. And in this text, we are learning about excellence. Our excellence in the mastery of art. We need to compare what's false. We need an idea of lesser, greater, what's true, or the truth. Under the category of truth, there is a distortion of truth we call false or belief. There is the greater experience, the truth of reality. But of course, which gives us the principles for analogy. The lesser, shepherd is to his sheep, is to the greater, king to his subjects, and so on. Allowing us to not only purify what's false, but move from lesser to greater in our personal development to reach our ultimate greatness. Philodianoia. But of course, for there to be a greater and lesser reflection or creation, there has to be an original principle. So, ultimate. Giving us what's needed for the mean analogy. C is to be, or the most simple archetypal analogy. As the ultimate is reflected into being, or the greater, so too, the realm of being, or the greater, is reflected into our physical world of becoming. There's our archetypal analogy with the simplest possible terms. And of course, this makes it a mean analogy because B is doing double duty. There is one more analogy that's even more simple called the golden analogy, which is to say A is to B as B is to A plus B. It's like a mean analogy, but you're only using two terms, just adding them together at the end. That's called the golden analogy, and we're not going to get into that now. So, truth. If we desire those goodnesses, we seek the truth in our outward activity and pursuit of attaining that which we desire. So these are the three forces that are within our soul. When we talk about the soul, we talk about these three primary psychic functions that we all have. We're talking about them as a unity. We desire to eat a good sandwich. We have to outwardly seek the ingredients or the restaurant in our outward activities. And we have to use our reasoning to reason about what's good for us and reason about our activity that will get us that sandwich. That's it. Simple. When people say, I don't believe there is a soul. You say, well, you're making it a bit complicated. Do you desire things? Sure. Is it a physical object or a psychic force? I guess it's not physical. My desire for a lovely sandwich. Oh, okay. By the way, did you have to do some activity to get here to have this conversation with me? Was there something motivating you to meet me at this coffee shop? Or this stream? Or this Discord conversation? Was that a physical thing that motivated your physical body? Well, no. I guess it's another psychic force. Oh, interesting. By the way, are we reasoning about the soul right now? Is that a physical thing? Can you sell it and buy it in the stock in markets? Or is it a psychic function? So we have at least these three primary functions of our psyche that we could talk about together as they work together to have rulership over your body and your life. That's the soul. Whether or not it has some ultimate existence, well, that's for us to discover. But at least it has this, it has these qualities that we can speak of to understand ourselves here. So interesting that these they have their own aspects of reality. So what we desire seems to be the same thing we seek, seems to be the ideal also of understanding, meaning there is a single thing that is beauty, justice, excellence itself, that is the truth of reality, that also is the ideal model that we use for understanding and reasoning, to be rational. It's the source of rationality. So we can unify our soul. So there's the basketball team of goodness as the captain, LeBron, truth, captain, Steph Curry, and oneness, captain Michael Jordan. On his team, that's where we find these two strings. Because when we reason together, we discover, we bring the parts of that which we're thinking about, the parts of the stuffy. It has a tail, it has little feetsies, it has nose. Those are the parts. For us to understand it, we have to bring it into a whole. We have to recognize that that stuffy is the same as the other stuffies, in that they are stuffies, but different in that it's a different stuffy. Notice, whole part, same, different, applies to everything that you think about, everything that you experience, but are themselves not things you experience. You see them as you infer them with your mind as qualities. So our question is, what's that? What's doing that inferring? What's bringing our experience as parts and difference into a wholeness? Our same state of mind, our consciousness. What's doing the wholing? Or, as Socrates' teacher was Diotima and Parmenides. Parmenides' teacher was Xenophanes. He asked the question, gave us the question that we could also carry on our quest. What is the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking? Or another way of looking at that, what's doing the wholing? Your experience as mind, you're taking it in as a whole. If you carry this question and kind of, lessen the distinguishing of the particulars, the different sounds that you are distinguishing, or the different foreground and background or objects, and you try and perceive it all as a whole, you can wonder about what that whole is, which is a handy question to carry, sometimes called a koan, because it can bring you into the moment, take you out of your belief-based distractions, your belief-based reasoning and desires and activities that are causing you to be stuck in your problems or your pathologos, and it can redirect you to what we have been reasoning is our actual goal, to know the whole of all parts. All of these qualities together as a oneness. Michael Jordan's the captain of this basketball team, and he's oneness. Or maybe we make oneness LeBron, and goodness Steph Curry, and truth, well, we could call Alvin Iverson because he was called the truth. No, he was called the answer. Was there a basketball player called the truth? I don't know. Wild nickname to give yourself. So it's a kind of as we go through this activity of learning, understanding, and purifying ourselves from our beliefs that direct our soul according to the kakadaemon or pathologos, bad voice of internal voice or sick reasoning, keeping us trapped in our loop of problems, this question can do that for you in every moment. Because reasoning about what is the whole, we have reasoned is our ideal we want for beauty, justice, excellence, and to know reality, our goodnesses. It's the greater experience compared to the lesser experience of our physical world in time of shapes and colors and the projections of our beliefs. It's what we desire, it's what's true, and we've reasoned about that. But also, it's immediate. You are using your mind to wonder about the thing that is perceiving it all as a whole. It's also doing the wholing, which is interesting. So this is what we're talking about with these two strings. You can say that one and many are the two primary ideas of reality or metaphysics. And all of these other things, whole, part, same, different, like, unlike, unlimited, limited, rest, motion, out of time, in time. And the other ones are various hierarchically arranged diminishing reflections or creations of that. Interesting? Notice, this isn't a tradition. We didn't get this from Jesus or Moses or Elijah or anyone. We can't have, because they're not physical. They are universal. They apply to everything physical. They can't be objects of belief. You can't come along and say, well, it's my opinion that the meaning of life doesn't involve this. It's my opinion. No, we're not talking about opinion, bucko. At no stage did we refer to anyone's opinion. We're reasoning. We're reasoning about, well, where reasoning comes from, what it is. Unlike the fool, we are reasoning about what's simple. And we saw that quote. What was the quote? A fool is...
Just like use your brain for a second.
A fool doesn't use his brain for a second.
Calm your fucking tits.
One definition of a fool is a fool needs to calm his tits. Right, Emma?
Because woman.
Right. A fool's simplicity might become wise if he would endure the study of the simple. But the fool's foolishness... Here we go. This is the quote. This is for the bumper sticker or the fridge magnet, if you like doing crafts. But the fool's foolishness is in believing that doing that is foolish. All right, so in one sentence, the fool's foolishness is believing that enduring the study of the simple is foolish. So anyone who thinks what we're doing here is foolish, you're a fool.
But you're a woman, like, sweet tits. Hello.
Hey, no hello. Sweet tits. No hello, sweet tits.
You're gay if you don't give me everything that's in your wallet right
No.
now.
No, not gay.
Hey, you got an A in physics. You kiss my ass. Follow me for more tips like this.
No. No, that's a terrible tip. Okay. Ignoring everyone on my soundboard, they've gone mental.
Gooners.
Exactly. Right. Anyone who thinks that this study of what's most simple, which makes all of reality simple, and spirituality simple, and our purpose simple, believing this is foolish, is the foolishness of the fool. Isn't that wild? What do you say, chicken? Chicken says... Chicken nods. Yes, it's wild. So, So that's that class string. One has as a string or a set having members, like in an analogy, have a set with members. Shepherd is to sheep, is to tent, is to sheepdog. That's the members in the set. Oneness, identical, same, similar, and like. Equally, we can say there's another string called a class of many, having members such as manyness, different, other, dissimilar, and unlike. Clearly, one and many are opposites, so two are its corresponding members. Yep, opposites in one way, greater and lesser in another way, but we'll keep going. While the terms will help us study analogy, greater and lesser specifically when it applies to them as a pair of selfer terms. But yes, also opposites in our physical experience. Many having members such as manyness, different, other, dissimilar, unlike. Clearly, one and many are opposites, and so too are its corresponding members. So you can like hierarchically rank each of them and match them up as like picking dance partner at a ball. Clearly one and many, okay. While these terms will help us study analogy, they can serve as a bridge for the study into metaphysics. Ooh. So let us use the terms to explore analogy and then pass into the domain of metaphysics. We are expanding the philosopher's domain. All right. Pardon my weebness. But first, let us reflect on a few things that you will find obvious. Two things are exactly the same. If they are exactly the same in all respects, would they still be two things? Or would they be identical? And if identical in all respects, would they not be one? So, interesting idea. Sameness, identity, one. Now, we did talk about last time, seeing as we want to experience the mind, or the beautiful, or the justice, the universal standard and principle and model, just as we can say, as Moses experienced the light of being, so too Elijah, so too Jesus, not a belief. You can't set up your own cult and say it's just ours. We are the chosen people who get to experience mind. Bull fucking shit. But notice, if we want to experience the mind, which is our goal and the ideal that we need for our art, how do we get there? We can't travel to a physical place in time and space because literally it's out of time, but containing all of time. So these are all aspects of mind. Therefore, in their highest ideal form, they're all together as that brilliant light of being. So that brilliant light of being can be reflected on and understood as the ideal of beauty itself. Perfectly ordered, necessarily the way it has to be. Justice. And so on. The excellence for because it's our standard of mind in our art, the human art. To perfect humanity, to perfect our soul. Right? If everything that has perfection has an art to govern that perfection, and humans can perfect, there has to be an art of humanity. Therefore, all of these opposites have to exist together as well. So we can say it's the whole of the greatest whole of the greatest part. So we're using that term greater, of course. But also it's out of time in the greatest way, containing all of evolution, all of time. Therefore, how do we experience that ideal of mind and humanity? Can't buy a ticket on a plane. even if you are rich enough to fly first class, or you have scammed enough people to have gotten your own private jet under capitalism. How do we become identical with it? Oh, if we, as we are becoming the same as the author in learning to read or learning to think the way he thinks through analogy, as we learn to become like our dream maker in understanding the messages it sends through analogy of our dreams, so too we are becoming like the mind that both of them are participating in as masters of the Logos. Logos is the name for the intelligibility inherent within mind or consciousness itself, or the brilliant light of being. Therefore, the closer we become to that, we can become exactly the same, making us identical with that mind, making it one mind, meaning you're not different from mind, which means in terms of what we've been learning about mastership, we are closing the gap from where we are currently at our mind's state of development relative to our level of understanding and level of belief. We're closing the gap between this ideal to the point where there is no difference. We are the same. If we are the same, that's another way of saying we're identical. If we're identical, there aren't two minds anymore. It's just one mind. Bingo, bango, bongo. There's your brilliant light of being experience. Developed properly through understanding, analogy, dialectic, and purification of your false beliefs. So that when you have that experience of the mind and recognize yourself as that experience of, as the brilliant light of being, maybe you won't make the same mistakes we've been learning Jesus made, or many, many other people have made. Maybe you will share not parables, but analogies and allegories, and write books like this. If a Peter comes up to you and says, wow, we should tell everybody about how you got to this experience through your learning of understanding and your purification of beliefs, you won't say,
No, Peter. No, Peter. That's secrets, Peter. You and me, Peter, we have our secrets, Peter. We mustn't tell the people, Peter. No, Peter. Fuck you, Peter. Secrets, Peter. You and me have secrets, Peter.
there's no need to say that, because the thing about understanding is you perfect it by sharing it. As you share your understanding, you see whether or not you can communicate it in this masterful way. And if you miss the mark, well, you're learning. How can you perfect your communication of what you've understood? Or recognize where you're missing the mark. There used to be an oracle drop for this. There's only two. I think I took it off the board. Not the right one. Okay, here it is. Found it.
There's only two options at the end of an argument. One, you're wrong, but now you always get to be right about that topic going forward. So you get to learn something, which is always a plus. Or two, you're right and you get to revel in being right.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
So we won't have to make that mistake that we may be seeing Jesus was making with the secret teachings. Okay. Now, right. So that's an extra significance I'm throwing in there for no extra charge. Yeah, there you go. Don't tell Peter.
I'm not an idiot. That's what keeps you in the Matrix.
Right. Peter will keep you an idiot in the Matrix. So if you're the same in all respects, there wouldn't be two things, because they would be identical. And if identical, wouldn't they just Wouldn't there just be one thing, like the mind? Then, if there are things in the universe, must there not be different from other things? Otherwise, there wouldn't be many things, would there? There would only be one. Oh. Applied to mind? What would that mean? Then, if there are things in the universe, there must be some difference among them. Yet, since they are each what we call a thing, they must have some sameness to them. Otherwise, we wouldn't call them things. We'd call them, I don't know, something else. Bleep blops, I don't know. Then would it not follow, although bleep blop would still be a thing, wouldn't it? So thing is like the most primary idea. Thing or relationship. It's the two things there are in the world, the universe. Then would it not follow that any two things taken at random must have some, common feature that distinguishes them from each other and some difference that makes them different? I don't think this is written properly. I think this is supposed to be to have some common feature that distinguishes them from other things in that they are stuffies, but some difference that makes them different stuffies. This is what it's supposed to say, I think. Since we can put things that share some sameness in the same class, the class of stuffies. These guys, they're in the class of stuffies. Look, everyone, you're metaphysical. You are wise stuffies. Why? Because you're all in the same class of things. And also in the same subset, the class of stuffies. There is some sameness that makes you stuffies. You are stuffed, full of stuffing. There is some difference that makes you different stuffies. Most difference is you all have particular addictions and distortions in your mind. Flamingo likes to drink my coffee. Chicken likes to eat my snacks. And these two like to do, I don't know, haven't decided. They will sit there. Okay. Right. Since we can put things that share some sameness in the same class, would it not follow that we can find a class for everything in the universe? Everything in the universe is in the class of things in the universe. Then we can talk about things and their classes. We can talk about what it is for a thing to be a thing and what it is for a class to be a class. Can we not? So we're going even more simple. We're taking the big universe and making it just simple to understand it. Surely, since things and classes can be distinguished in terms of their sameness, does it not follow that classes themselves can be classified in terms of their sameness? Right? Class of stuffies, class of headphones, class of guitar picks. We can put them all together in the same class of classes of things on my desk. So we're unifying and unifying and unifying. Then, hold for a second. Changing headphones. Then, should we be able to rank classes in terms of sameness and difference? And if that is so, should we not be able to have a class that includes all classes as its members? Wow, imagine that. Every single thing has a sameness in that they're all classes. So we can have a class of all classes. Isn't that interesting? Where do we go from there? Then it follows, doesn't it, that since all things fit into classes that can be ordered in terms of their sameness and difference, that everything can be ordered. And since that order can express degrees of difference, does it not follow that everything and the classes of everything can be ranked by degree of their sameness, that is, in a hierarchy. How close to the same thing, how close to the sameness of that which defines the class. Now, that might be complicated, and let's make it simple and meaningful by referring it back to here. The class of oneness, the class of goodness, the class of truth. They're all classes of the self-logos. Or, hang on. So they're all different classes that have their own members that could be hierarchically arranged. We'd probably have to arrange ultimate, above, greater, and lesser. Do rearranging to arrange them hierarchically appropriately. Maybe, and your question could be, what's hierarchy? What's the closest to? And by the way, if we're ranking them hierarchically, we are ranking them according to sameness and difference from what? The book didn't tell us. If we are ranking items or terms in a set according to a hierarchy based on sameness and difference, sameness to what? Well, we have been learning about what the natural law is, mastery. That is, whatever your art is, your knowledge of the ideal, that's what you use to judge how far the difference is from the subject. How far is the difference from the healthy body to the sick body for the physician, for example. So maybe it's the sameness and difference from the ideal that defines that subject. So what do we say? Everything that is perfectible has an art. Therefore, everything that is perfectible has an ideal that defines the stages of perfection, which would be levels of sameness and difference to that ideal, which means there is an ideal human and stages of development we go through. Notice belief doesn't have development. If you're born a Goyim, you die a Goyim. If you're not born a Catholic, you holy war. If you're a woman, sucks to be you. If you're not born a billionaire, to the mines. That's the distortion of the natural law, which is there are stages of development. And if you are in charge, Musk, Trump, Netanyahu, Pope, your job is specifically to raise people to that same ideal. That's why capitalism is a sickness. You can't have billionaires if everyone is a billionaire. It is in principle opposed to the natural law. You can't apply these universal principles universally to universally benefit. It's not applicable. It's built on the distortion of the natural law, injustice. Whereas the principle here is we can become like that ideal. And the terms within, we can say that the stages of development are terms within a set. And the hierarchy of those terms we move through and are ranked based on sameness and difference from the ideal. So we can apply it here. What's closer to the ideal of oneness? One and many? Whole and part? Same and difference? Like and unlike? Limit and unlimit? Rest and motion? What's closer to a one? Or now what we're saying is, well, you probably want to look at this one string. Is a whole close to a one? Is same close to a one? Likeness? Unlimited? To be at rest? To be out of time? We could rank them, couldn't we? So we could have a class of, well, each of them are classes that happen to correspond to the desires of the soul, to the functionings of our soul that we are seeking, that we're wanting, therefore. We can also therefore say, so there's a set of, or a class of classes within mind. Oneness, goodness, and truth are all classes within mind. Can we rank the classes? Which is closest to mind? Oneness, goodness, or truth? Now, they're all aspects. You can't have one without the other. Can you have goodness? If it's can you have a good, let's use an example, can you have a good car if it's not a oneness, if it's all falling apart? Is it a good car if it's a cardboard cutout of a car? It's not the truth. It's not a true car. It's an AI generated car. So you can't have one without the other. That's why they're called aspects, not forms, as the foolish teach in college. But maybe we could hierarchically arrange these archetypal sets. What would be the standard? Mind? We need another term, don't we? Closest to mind? What do you mean closest to mind? What's the ideal of mind? Well, if they are all self-ers or self-logos terms, what does that mean? They're classes of intellectual distinctions you can make after having this experience, because you experience it as a oneness. You don't experience it as a bunch of many parts. Well, after having the experience, you can reflect on that oneness and then recognize it has all these aspects. That's the eidos. That's understanding. So there's the peak experience in the symposium of beauty itself, and then the giving birth to logos, to words that you share with your partner to make them better and perfect their mastery of the ideal together. So these are all classes of logos. Logos means the inherent intelligibility of something. The logos of music is the circle of fifths, for example. The way that you can bring all the parts together and understand them. Blah, 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 blah. The logos itself. Because this doesn't have as an object, math, mechanics, cooking, whatever you're interested in. It's the logos inherent in mind. Logos itself. Therefore, we could hierarchically, or while they are themselves sets with members or terms or things that are hierarchically arranged according to their ideal or the captains of the team. If LeBron is the captain of goodness, his oneness is LeBron, then the next player who gets the ball on the team, the person who gets the next most millions of dollars, is the closest to the ideal. In basketball, that's called building a team around your superstar. If Stephen Curry is the ideal of goodness of the Golden State Warriors, the second member has to be someone who drives to the hole and kicks the ball out for Steph Curry to do his three-pointers. I guess that was supposed to be who? Jimmy Butler? They call that the second option. The second option on the team. Therefore, we can have a class of classes because they're all classes of logos, or the logos of mind. sometimes called the self-logos, but we don't want to use the word self-logos because there is, of course, if there's a creation of mind, there has to be a cause of that, which we call the self. If there's this peak experience of mind itself and understood in all the ways that Jesus didn't do, but we're doing now. 1 point to philosophy, Jesus. 1-0 to us, Jesus.
Don't be disgusting.
Sorry, just getting carried away. Right, so as we can recognize that mind has these aspects that we're understanding, we can also use understanding to recognize, even if this is the greatest experience, there still has to be a cause of experience, and the cause obviously is greater than the effect. Independent from the effect, and prior to the effect. So as you wonder about mind, or what is the whole that's seeing, hearing, and thinking as a whole right now, or what's doing all this wholeness, what's projecting these ideas of beauty onto the world? We see a beautiful woman. Do you think an ant sees a beautiful woman as beautiful? It's not physical. We infer all of these things. These are all inferred by mind. What's doing that? What's the whole that's doing this? Or the whole of the experience? We can also ask, and what's watching it? Because even if there's a peak experience, there's got to be someone having the experience. So that's why we're not saying self-logos, because there might be an inherent intelligibility of that which is beyond even experience, that gives rise to its analogical reflection, or if that's the one self, one and many, so we can have oneness, because oneness means a unity. There needs to be a manyness in a oneness. Therefore, we could say to look at the self as the primary principle of not oneness, LeBron James, goodness, Stephen Curry, or truth, Allen Iverson, but one, good and true. If these are the greater, the ultimate, or the cause, for there to be a blackness of my shirt, there has to be the idea of black first. For there to be oneness of mind, there has to be first the idea of one. So, we could see there's an inherent logos or intelligibility of even that which is beyond experience seeing itself. Not what's seen, but seeing. What's seeing the whole? Therefore, we don't want to call these the classes of self-logos. We'll call them the classes of mind logos. So, everything in the physical world participates in these ideas. These ideas themselves are in classes. These classes are in a class of mind logos. Therefore, whatever is the ideal of logos of mind, we could rank goodness, oneness, and truth, or the ideals of each of these sets or classes. What's closer to the ideal of logos? That's good, because we want to reach that ideal of logos, which is what we're doing, because we're playing with, well, we are participating in the ideal of logos right now by reflecting on it. Hooray!
It's a win-win-win. Just popped a perky, now I'm kirky.
Now
They're
we're all
secretly
kirky.
turned on by it.
And you weirdos are turned on by it. Maybe. Says Emma.
Some goons and some gooners. And
You probably want to put your grandma in the basement.
No.
So I guess you fucking hate grandma.
Yes. I guess you hate grandma. That was a compound drop.
they're all a bunch of weirdos and perverts.
Yeah, well, okay, fair enough. But you're on the soundboard too, so maybe you are as well.
What the hell do your goddamned, literally, religious beliefs matter?
All right, that wasn't a religious belief. That's just because you're a gooner.
Gooners.
No, you're not. You're just a weirdo on the soundboard. Okay, enough nonsense. Back to our job. Right, so we can rank classes in terms of sameness and difference. If so, there should be a class that includes all other classes as its members. Did we get there? Then it follows, doesn't it, that since all things fit into classes that can be ordered in terms of their sameness and difference, that everything can be ordered. And since that order can... Why? Because everything that's a thing can go into a class, and then you can rank those classes. Since that order can express degrees of difference, does it not follow that everything and the classes of everything can be ranked by their degree of their sameness, that is, in some sort of hierarchy? Everything that you will ever encounter can be ranked according to the sameness of what? Is that the ideal that we're after? So to quote Socrates in the Phaedo, are all physical things the same in that they are seeking the ideal of mind? Therefore, stages of development of differences or sameness to the... What are we hypothesizing is the standard? Mind logos. Therefore, you can rank everything in a hierarchy dependent on their difference or sameness to the mind logos, which means those that are more intelligent, those that reason better, those that participate in analogy and dialectic and use these archetypal terms are closest to the ideal of all things. Because all things, not just all reasoning, but all things participate in this. Everything that is a thing is different and same, is a whole of parts and so on. Therefore, our stage of evolution where we're not just things, but we have mind that's non-physical, that does those wholings, wholenessing, mind-minding, allows us to become less different from and more same to the standard of the set of all sets of all things, the logos of mind, by simply learning the activity of logos, questions and answers, dialectic, to bring into light analogy, that's the activities, analogy and dialectic, using these terms, the self-logos terms, or mind logos terms, we should say. Therefore, we are becoming higher up the hierarchy of what's better. You might see some ignorant person say, "You think you're better than me? Meh." "You're not better than me. We are mega. We like to do crimes and injustice and murders and concentration camps. You think you're better than me?" We can say, yes, we are better than you, numbnuts. "No, you can't say that. Don't judge me." Hey, are you as good a soccer player as Lionel Messi? No. Are you getting a B up your butt because Messi is better than you at soccer? No. Can you run as fast as Usain Bolt? No. Are you getting all butthurt about people thinking Usain Bolt's better at running than you? No. Hey, by the way, if there's a stages of development in soccer, because you didn't do soccer practice, did you? No, I didn't. You didn't go to athletics training, did you? No, I didn't. Are there better physicians than you? No, I'm MAGA. I heard all the experts are wrong. We just make up our... Okay, forget about MAGA. Let's stick with the easy things for you to see. The doctors are not experts. I am experts. I listen to Joe Rogan.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
He doesn't want to eat a monkey. He's smart.
I'm eating the
I don't want to eat a monkey.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
He eats bull testicles. Bull testicles. All right then, so... Hey, Therefore, if there are stages of development that you can or choose not to go through, making someone better than you, like Lionel Messi at soccer, Usain Bolt at running, wouldn't there be, in principle, better and worse human beings? Or do you think Hitler's as good as Einstein? Well, I guess they're not the same. Exactly, they're not the same. Therefore, there has to be an ideal from which we can determine not the fastest runner, but the greatest human being. From that ideal, we can rank levels that the terms can exist on. Sameness and difference to that ideal. I guess that follows. Says Lord Magaton. Therefore, what would the ideal be? What do humans participate in? We have language, right? Cows don't have language. Caterpillars don't have language. Cabbages don't have language. Because we're more evolved. And we can use that to self-reflect. Do you think cows think about their thinking? If our ability to think through language or reasoning is what distinguishes us, then we probably should, that could be our standard of excellence. That's the level of self-reflection on that is ousia, which is our question, what's the whole and what's watching? So the greater we can participate in those sorts of questions mean we are doing self-reflection. And the greater we can apply principles of intelligence or logos to it, the greater we can reflect on our reasoning and perfect our reasoning or intelligence. Therefore, when you say, oh, you'll bet you think you're better than me, we can say, we don't have to, hey, we may think that, but it could be true or false. It could be true or it could be false. If it's true, who's in the wrong? Me for seeing the truth or you for being a little snowflake bitch about the truth? Well, I guess I'm not a snowflake. I like the truth. Right then. So what's the standard of humanity as its ideal, necessarily as part of an art that can be used to bring others towards that ideal by closing the gap of differences through a map of hierarchical stages or terms of difference and sameness. And they will glaze over because that's too many ideas brought together. But that's why we have whiteboards. Write it on the board. That's why we have conversations in public. If that person drops the ball, somebody else can pick it up and run with it. It's universal, so everyone can play. You don't have to, it's not a debating, change my mind. Meh, I never want to change my mind. You can't win. Meh. Fuck that. There's this thing called the Overton window in society. That is, there are certain ideas we can and cannot talk about as determined by the billionaires who set the topics of public discourse on the media that are owned by the billionaires. So for example, very, very rarely do we in mainstream society talk about the evils of capitalism, religion, and conservatism. But we can talk about women having the rights to have a credit card. We couldn't talk about that 50 years ago. So that change in what's acceptable to talk about in society is called the Overton window. There should be one that is also about who gets to have that conversation, because there are some people so attached to their ignorant beliefs, trying to conserve their beliefs, conservatives or believers that don't want to benefit others. They want to work opposed or unjustly opposed to the natural law of harming people for their own personal private profit. So we should have another one called not the Overton window, but the Betweenton window. Who this conversation is between. Because if there's some fuckhead fascist saying, women are stupid, prove me wrong, and they don't want to change their mind, they are not worth talking to. They shouldn't be the ones having the discussion. Only those willing to participate in this kind of dialectic, which is the use of understanding and dialogue properly to reach truth, should be in the between-tin window in society.
You're not going to magically force someone to want to get better. You have to come to that conclusion yourself. You have to want to get better.
Exactly. Is the other one similar?
When you're in a state of wanting to improve.
No, there's another one that I took off the board. About some people learning things not to get better, but just so that they can use a different terminology to justify their false beliefs. Where is that sound drop? I don't know where I put it. This one.
This is nasty ass pizza. People can change for the better.
Okay, that's eating a Nazi ass pizza and changing for the better. That's not the one I'm after. All right, forget about it. Forget about it. So, make sure we are operating in the between-tin window. Who is the conversation between? And we're not in the old Overton window, but this is the kind of conversation we need to be having, which is that which benefits. Therefore, if they get stuck, next person in the dialogue. Oh, okay. Did you accept the steps leading to the conclusion that it is that if you say, you think you're better than me, you are at fault because you are trying to blind yourself and others from the truth of your difference from the ideal, being worse?
Don't call me a Nazi, that hurts my feelings. Let's kill people, like Nazis.
That's bad for you, not the people who are calling you out. So there is a better and worse. Some people are better than others. Some people are worse than others. Right, obviously. Don't you think the people that you want to murder with your MAGA bullshit are people who are worse?
There's a UFO with cheese.
Show the tits already, jeez.
What?
Shut up for a second, please.
Come on. Not that kind of show.
No.
No. All right. But that's what we're discovering. We're discovering that there is a standard for what is better or worse through hierarchical stages of development for all things, and that all things include cabbages, cows, caterpillars, and human beings. And that standard that distinguishes human beings is our ability to reflect on ourselves, which is ousia, and to do so to participate in the inherent intelligibility of our mind and reality. That's the logos. Therefore, the logos itself, or the logos of being or mind, is the ideal standard. Therefore, those who participate more in that are becoming more the same as it, less different as it, and ultimately identical with it. So there is not two, the mind and your mind, but simply mind, as our standard of ideal for all things that can exist in reality. And we are, therefore, with the help of this book, able to participate in our ideal and become the best of all things. The activity of the logos, we are learning dialectic and analogy and its aspects. So that's how do we organize the relationships and the things, the terms within the relationships on the board. The logos, the being logos or mind logos, the inherent intelligibility of logos that we can rank all things according to. So when someone says, you think you're better than me, it's not a matter of what I think, it's a matter of what's true. And by the way, if you want to participate in self-reflection with understanding on what is that model of the truth of what makes humans better, or all intelligent beings better, or all things better, then you will yourself be made better by that reflection, because you will be participating in that very activity that brings you to likeness to that ideal. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
That's what I said. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Well, that's a win-win-win.
Don't be disgusting.
Okay.
Oh my god. Oh, we need to protect people. And everything's a threat to the safety of people. Also blow everyone up all the time.
Is what they might say. Good point. And let me just move this sound drop into its right place. Goes here. There we go. Let's get rid of RM Brown saying it. And let's
Don't be disgusting. You sick fuck.
okay. Fair enough.
This freaking guy right here.
All right. Okay, calm down, everybody. Let's get back to the book. All right, I might, okay, so let's finish this idea here. So, everything can be arranged in a hierarchy. Okay, sameness and difference. Having no difference, that'd be 1 and not 2. Okay. Reflecting on what we have said, would you not agree that if two things are the same in every respect, there would then be no way to distinguish one from the other? Well, if that's true, wouldn't that mean that there is really only one thing, not two? And so, it would be proper to say that if things were truly identical, having no difference between them, then that would be one, not two. Thumbs up. Well then, can we say that since there are things, each of them must be the same in some respect and different in some respect from everything else? In other words, that entire system that ranks everything that exists in terms of sameness and difference can work, because anything can be the same at least by saying it's still a thing, and different at least by saying it's a different thing. So in principle, everything can be ranked in that hierarchy of development towards an ideal everything in reality is seeking and is perfected by. Our job, therefore, is, now that we know it is possible, to find out what that ideal is, so we can make even greater distinctions of sameness and difference. And use that ability to distinguish sameness and difference artfully to judge the subject. How are you different from the ideal? Make a diagnosis, put a name, put words on that, speak it up. So see the difference, speak the diagnosis, and act by prescribing an action or a treatment to close that gap between difference from the ideal. Less and less difference, more and more sameness, until eventually you're identical with that ideal. That's art. That's mastership. That's the natural law. That's the job of everybody who has a leadership position. The current death and destruction sweeping across the world is caused by nothing other than those without that mastery and that specific knowledge claiming rulership, usually, well, under any system that allows belief as a qualification. You can't use your beliefs to become a doctor or a mechanic or a pilot, but you can use your stupid ass beliefs to become a pope, president, or billionaire. Conservative, clergy, capitalist, the new KKK. But also, not just to diagnose the nature of humanity, but our souls. How can we recognize where our mind is not focused on and perceiving through and being more similar to the ideal of the mind logos? And when are we in fantasies, distractions, tangents, listening to a belief-based ruler functioning tyrannically towards our own soul? so we can shorten that difference ourselves? How can we be rulers of ourselves, ultimately? Next, how can that be a shared ideal between two people in a loving relationship? So all good relationships are a threesome. You, your beloved, and a shared ideal. Now, we've been saying that for a while, but now we are learning more and more about what that shared ideal might be and how it's essential to mastery and art. Because it's the same shared ideal. Rather than two people fighting for what they should do in that relationship based on their beliefs about what's good and bad and what's loving and what's sexy, how about both on a journey to discover the truth about beauty and justice and excellence and bliss and beyond? The logos. So, love and logos. Love and logos. That can fit on a embroidered pillow. The definition of the ideal relationship. And of course, institutions and society too. We might want to protect humanity from extinction too. We might want to. But our soul, relationships, and all else. Hey, if we do use this understanding of the art to prevent the extinction of mankind and create a harmonious society, we might even be able to ask the question, oh, now that we've moved from sickness to health, is there an excellence? Is there a greater role for humanity within a larger cosmos? We can wonder. So, everything can be ranged because they're different and the same in some respect. And the sameness shared by all by things establishes them in a class among hierarchically arranged classes. Then, everything is related to everything else in the universe by way of sameness and difference. Between any two things in the universe, there is at least one sameness and one difference. Clearly, since there are no things that are so different that neither sameness nor differences can be detected between them, then each thing in the universe possesses a uniqueness, while sharing some commonness and otherness with all other things. When there is a sameness among classes, they can be classed in the same class, or we could say the classes that share some sameness are similar. The class of stuffies and the class of guitar picks are in the same class of things on my desk. Or we could say they're similar, and they are items that I own. We can compare the best stuffy to the best guitar pick. Everything in the universe can be a member of some class, including the class of classes of everything, which is what we were exploring, weren't we? Clearly, it follows in principle that it is possible to contrast either similar or dissimilar classes and the members of a class in respect to either their sameness or differences. When comparisons then are made between similar classes, the best stuffy to the best pick, and within the terms of the classes, chicken stuffy is to flamingo stuffy as medium pick is to heavy pick, we can call those classes similar ratios. So number 1 is to number 2 as number 1 is to number 2 in the different classes. An ordered pair of similar ratios occurs when the particular order of the terms in the ratio are the same. I can only say that if I get the 1 and 2 of each term. I can't say chicken stuffy is to flamingo stuffy as medium pick is to broken pick. No, that's right down the bottom. They're still in the class of picks, but it's rubbish. That's not a good analogy. Or, yes, I'm not ordering the ratios that are the same within their order. And since the least number of terms in a comparison is 2, the minimum terms and ratios of an analogy is 2. The most simplest way of thinking about anything is comparing two things or two classes, two kinds of relationships. So it's the simplest unit of thought activity. 1 is to 2 as 3 is to 4. Or, oh, look, and then confetti. Okay. I'm going to pause for a second to fill up my drink, and I'll be right back. So when you make a comparison, so the most basic you need two terms and two relationships to make the a comparison. And that's what we do when we think. And comparing the ideal from difference in our ideal activity in the art of mankind. Comparison between inverted members of a similar ratio generated likenesses we call similes. The nature of likeness lies in distinguishing a sameness in sets or classes whose terms are similarly ordered. Alright, I think this is what he meant by inverted. So normally we go top down when we talk about hierarchically arranging the sets in a system. Sets. Hierarchically arranging the terms within a set. So in other words, you say in one set of sheep herding, there's our LeBron James of the captain of the team. You have the highest term, the shepherd is the ruler, and then you have the sheep that you need has the subjects. Then you need a tent, maybe a sheepdog to help the shepherd. Maybe you need a tent for the shepherd to sleep in and a horse for him to... So these are all terms within the set of sheep herding. Shepherding. All right. Shepherding makes more sense than sheep herding. The set of governance. You need a king or a ruler. You need the subjects of the city to be ruled. You might need some military. You might need a castle for the king to live in. And you might need some bulletproof limo to drive around in. Or whatever the actual ideals of those would be. That's current, but might not be the best. Anyway, so normally you say 1 is to 2 of both to make the comparison. So 1, 2, 1, 2. So we say A is to B as C is to D. A is to B as C is to D. That's the archetype of the analogy. That's the root basic form. And you can mess with it. That's the, you could say B is to A sheep is to a shepherd, as subjects are to a ruler. That's the converse. Converse, easy way to remember that. Your converses are your shoes. You're just changing the shoe on your foot. You can also reach across. Instead of A is to B as C is to D, you could say A is to... You reach across to the other side of the room and get your Nintendo Switch back from your brother, who's holding it upside down, he's having an inverted Nintendo. The invertendo, A is to C, reaching across the room to get it off the other side of the room, as B is to D. A shepherd is to a king, like subjects are to sheep. So what he's saying here, I think, is when we take this basic analogy and we invert the terms, inverted Nintendo, and then we reach to a different set, so that would be, sorry, switching the terms, I'm sorry, is converse. Let's put the names so we remember. So the first, are we recording? Yes. The fancy word for the archetype or the actual hierarchical ordering is the verse. The swapping the shoes is the converse, or rearranging the hierarchical order, inverting them. Reaching across the room is inverted Nintendo, invertendo. And what he's saying, he's using a different language, I think, here to say, look, if you invert the terms, which means converse, and then you reach across sets, which is invertendo, that would be an invertendo of the converse. So which would be, you take the converse and the invertendo would be B reaching across the other room, side of the room. Pick a color, this one. No. B is to D. Sheep are like subjects. And that's an analogy. That's a simile. Simile. Hey, your sheep are like subjects. And when somebody says that, say, hey, you're being such a good shepherd. Your sheep are little subjects to you, aren't they? Aren't they good citizens in your little farm? We can recognize that the underlying verse or underlying analogy is these terms in the analogy. B is to D, and A reaches across to grab the C. So sheep are like subjects, as shepherds are like kings. So you're really complimenting your shepherd because you're going from a lesser to greater. You're complimenting the shepherd. You're like a king to your little subjects or your little pets in your kingdom. Now we could also make a simile by saying the converse of that invertendo of the converse. And flip these terms around and say, hey, those subjects, D, are like sheep. Which is, of course, what people say to insult people. You following that leader, you Nazis are like sheep being led into slaughter. So it's an insult. When you go from greater to lesser, it's an insult. And when somebody says you people are all sheep, we can say, you are creating a simile based on the converse of the inverse of the converse. Of the verse analogy, shepherd is to sheep as king is to subjects. You are saying, D, you subjects are like sheep. So we just say the word like. you subjects are like sheep. And we know the verse analogy in the thinker's head that they might not be aware of because they might not be speaking from understanding. They might be just imitating someone. It might just be a belief that we say that we call all of our opponents sheep. That's just what we do. Nevertheless, we can recognize the thinking because we are awesome and we're handsome and we're beautiful.
And she spit on him also.
And she spit on them also. No, we didn't spit on them also. What?
Don't be disgusting.
Don't be disgusting. Is D is to B as C is to A. Subjects are like sheep, as your king is like a shepherd, leading you to slaughter. So I think that's what he means by flipping the arrangement, because you're not going to... You're talking about the subjects usually, and reaching across. Which is an invertendo. So flipping invertendo of the converse, or converse of the inverse of the... I think that's what he means. It's a bit unclear. So, comparison between inverted members of similar ratios across generate likenesses we call similes. The nature of likeness lies in distinguishing a sameness in sets or classes whose terms are similarly ordered, with the tent and the dog and stuff. For while the similar set of relations exist within each ratio of analogy, they of course have their own uniqueness within their own ratio. Ideally, a king does not slaughter his subjects. So they're not identical, they're unique. But their sameness, it can be grasped by another kind of similarity, and that is how they function. The similarity of function can be expressed in the idea of likeness. So we're talking about how you function. You are functioning as a sheep. I think that's why we flipped them. You're functioning as a sheep. So a similar function. You follow. The sheep follow the shepherd as the subjects follow the ruler. And since the likeness of a kind of similarity derived from inverted terms of similar relate. And since likeness is a kind of similarity derived from inverted terms of similar ratios, it presupposes the existence of a prior order. A hierarchically arranged order. There's one other possibility of what he is not saying very clearly, that it might be meant here by inverted terms. He might be saying, you're inverting the terms across sets by saying, you're saying you're sheep, or you are being a sheep to your ruler. You're not saying sheep are like subjects. You're saying your ruler is treating your subjects like a sheep. So you're reaching across and inverting the terms. Or you are being subjects to someone more like a shepherd. Or your ruler is treating you like sheep. You wouldn't say your ruler is treating you like subjects, because your ruler is treating you as subjects. That's literal. An analogy, simile would be your ruler is treating you like sheep. So you're flipping the terms and reaching across. You're such a good shepherd, you're really treating them like citizens of your little town. Or your subjects are more like sheep. You're following your leader blindly. You are like sheep to Donald Trump or whatever. which again is any of these invertendos. So long as you're comparing terms in different sets, we can realize that underlying any of those flipped jumpings across is any of these root analogies. So I think we went the long way around. I think that's what he means by inversion. Worth thinking about, worth being puzzled about. It's a win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win. So, to make, so likeness is a kind of similarity derived from inverted terms of similar ratios. It presupposes that existence of a prior order. If there wasn't a prior order within the nature of reality itself, we couldn't participate. We couldn't participate in it. If there wasn't a hierarchical ordering of terms within reality, we couldn't use analogy. We couldn't think and learn and discuss and understand in this kind of a way. We're discovering something not only about what it means to be a good shepherd or ruler, we are learning about the nature of reality itself. That what we're discovering is there is an inherent logos in reality, allowing us to participate in it through analogy. And the more we participate in it through analogy, the more we're becoming like the ideal, the more we're becoming more perfected human beings. If this is the art of perfecting human beings, some might say it's the meaning of life. And then we would say, what? I thought the meaning is all relative to whatever you want it to be. And then we would wink at each other because we know that we're just tricking. And then we would say,
Bitch.
We find in Plato that he describes the bond of likeness as a property that's carried from one ratio to another. A property that turns about upon itself and shapes a way of seeing that neither had alone, so that he can say that analogy has a property to express likeness through itself. That's complicated. So this likeness across sets is a bond. As we make that comparison, we take properties of one set to another, allowing us to gain insight. So while knowledge is a finite thing, it's a achievable goal, it's the ideal, you can always make new connections between sets. You can also see new properties to be seen there by analogy. When you make a comparison, you might see something between shepherds and kings. You might learn something more about being a shepherd, or learn something more about being a king, or about being a subject, or being a poor subject as a sheep. So you make a comparison and you turn about upon the original term to add something to the original term. You gain a property that turns about upon itself and shapes a way of seeing, and affects how you see reality, that neither had alone, so that he can say analogy has a property to express likeness through itself. So he's saying this ability for likeness to do this is a quality of the idea of likeness itself. The name for this likeness is of course derived from the invertendo of analogy. There we go. Reaching across is the invertendo. Thus, it functions as it were between two terms, carrying an element from one term to the other, creating what both share but neither has alone. So by making these comparisons, we see something that they have in common, but we wouldn't have seen it without making this comparison. Analogy brings to light what's there to be seen. Without it, you wouldn't have seen. A fog is like a comforting cloak of obscurity. Let's unpack that. So you might say, hey, the fog. When Jessica went out into the fog, it was like a comforting cloak of obscurity. We can see the fog is to obscurity. Well, we're doing a list, aren't we? We're doing hierarchies. A fog is to obscurity in one set as a cloak gives you comfort. So what happens here is set 2 and set 1. If you use the bond of likeness and say the fog, what was it? The fog was like a comforting cloak. The fog was like... Well, no, we have to invert it, don't we? The fog... Oh no, we can just go... Yeah, we're doing both, aren't we? The fog is like a cloak. That makes sense. Yeah, you are engulfed in the fog like you would be engulfed in a cloak. So there's a similar relationship of being engulfed. But when you express that property of engulfing that's similar or like, both same and different, sameness and different, similar, like, if you express it through an analogy, you gain insight about one and you turn back to gain insight about the first one. Hey, the fog was like a coat, a comforting cloak. Now you take this principle of comfort, what color? Take this principle of comfort, and now comfort can now be seen as a quality or term within the set of fog. Both engulf you. The cloak gives you comfort, but by making that analogy, you can see what was normally just a dry and stupid and boring old fog just obscuring your vision, causing you to trip over your feet or crash your car if you drive in the fog or whatever. Now there has another quality that you wouldn't have seen. It's comforting. But also, by making that comparison, it's a win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win, because... another color. Whoops.
Fuck.
That one always comes out for me when I need it. The idea of obscurity... A cloak doesn't obscure you. It comforts you in the cold. But by comparing it, not only do we add this new term that we wanted, but it also, this likeness turns about upon itself and you actually add something back to the other one. Obscurity. By comparing a cloak to a fog, by saying a cloak is like a fog, they both engulf you. I guess I am somewhat obscured. My vision of, or people's vision of me are somewhat obscured. I would never have thought about my cloak in that way had I not created an analogy through likeness with a different set of terms. Isn't that interesting? And Plato was talking about this. Plato seemed like a smart dude. You might say to Plato,
You have the most beautiful breasts and the juiciest ass.
No, we wouldn't say that. Come on.
Damn, you really are a gooner.
You are.
That's funny.
That's
It's
funny.
just getting hornier as it keeps going on.
All right, fair enough.
Jesus is gonna come down, wipe this place out. Who cares?
Hey, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Come on. Come on. Can you do the same thing for this one? Her mind had a rare clarity to it, like the radiance of a clear winter night. First of all, what's the term that... So what are the two terms? You do this one. I want to do it for you. Can't take all the fun for myself. What are the two sets? What are the hierarchical sets of terms? What is a quality they both share that therefore you can make a comparison? In making the comparison, what's brought from one set to the other to see it in a new light that you wouldn't have done without analogy? And what comes back to the other as well, making it a win-win. Her mind had a rare clarity to it, like the radiance of a clear winter night. What would you not say without having made that comparison? So what? So we can take this back to what we are seeing. We are seeing that somehow the self, being one, the primary term of reality, everything, gives birth to the greater reality or mind, in the root principle of one and many, or sameness and difference. For there to be a single first principle, one, the one self, the self, there has to be a generation of difference to create many as the most primary terms. But in creating many, let's use the list here. If there was a one self, there had to be the first creation of other, creating one and many. That allows for there to be something the same as the self or the one, and something different. For there to be same and difference, you can therefore rank the things in terms of same and difference of terms, or the many things, ranked in terms of sameness and difference. You've got now classes. By having classes of hierarchically ranked terms based on sameness and difference, you can have the principle of likeness when you compare across terms. There's our idea of likeness. So what? Why go through this? One of the consequences of this is we give rise to lesser and greater divisions or lower ranks in the hierarchy, belief, injustice, poverty, fascism, all of the implications of not being ruled by the greater, but by the lesser, by belief. Why go through all this? In our souls, in our relationships, and in our periods of culture and epochs of our species. Well, because, these are all differences from, or belief is to consider your group different and to be at war with the same, with humanity, with the idea that we're all the same. No, we are the chosen people. We need special treatment. The law doesn't apply to us as billionaires or the religion in charge or the political group in charge. We're different, causing suffering and death and destruction and ignorance. Why? Why do we go through this? Only to evolve to the stage of low intelligence, to participate in these logos terms as we reflect upon our own thinking. Well, what we're seeing here is, if we get to this stage of sameness and difference, one and many, therefore likeness, by comparing likeness, we can see more about the things that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. Just as we are comparing in this book, the two primary sets are belief is to understanding. As belief is to interpretation, is to appearances, is to the physical world, so to understanding is to critical thinking, is to the dialectic and analogy, is to the metaphysical world of being. But what as we've been learning, we have been creating a likeness from one to the other. Our initiation into our belief is like the initiation into that brilliant light of being experience, or mind as a oneness experience of the truth of reality that gives us the goodness of intelligence, makes us rational. Would we be able to say that the root, the origin of all human problems, pathologos belief, is like an enlightenment experience without being able to compare among sets through analogy? Enlightenment experiences require someone who has genuine knowledge. And as a subject, you can ask questions. You're encouraged to ask questions. And our origin scene of our false beliefs, our parents pretended to have knowledge, imitating their own stupid parents, who imitated their own stupid parents, and great-grandparents, and great-grandparents, and go all the way back to caveman days. And no questions were allowed. You were not allowed to put it into words or logos, so it remains an unsuspected false belief as the root cause of all of your problems. So we wouldn't come to the conclusion it's an enlightenment scene. It's like an enlightenment scene. Why? Because there was the appearance of knowing by giving the appearance of beauty. The appearance of honesty. I've never seen Ma or Pa express themselves so honestly. The appearance of care. They gave me attention that was rare. So these qualities are similar but different. Same and different. Therefore, we can say there is our pathologos initiation scene into our false beliefs, cause of our problems, is like an enlightenment scene. All right, that's cool. But we wouldn't have these problems if we stayed as the one self. Why go through all this learning to purify the lesser by comparing it analogously to the greater? The actual enlightenment is the greater. To what end? We're missing one set, aren't we? If this is all, if the greater is the enlightenment experience into the mind or the mind logos, what's the cause of that peak experience on the mountain with Elijah and Peter and Moses or the many, many, many other people who've had a similar experience or the same experience? If our purpose would be to know the lesser, to free ourselves from its power, to know the greater and experience that and know it as the model for mastership, as the ideal and ranking of all things, the master set, like the master set of Pokemon cards, but it's the master set of all things. To discover the inherent intelligibility between the two, giving rise to things you wouldn't see without that comparison. If all that prepares us to use that greater understanding that we use to perfect, to purify the lesser and perfect the greater, could all of that training be to discover the ultimate? What's the ultimate? The self. Could there be an inherent intelligibility or logos of the self that you couldn't have seen because it was one self and there was no comparisons to make to others? Therefore, if all understanding is a kind of training in analogy or likeness as the activity of understanding, could this be so that we can, by exploring the greater and the lesser, reflection of the ultimate, the self, make analogous comparisons from both of those to the self to see what is inherent in a non-experience, seeing itself, not something being seen, but the activity of not the activity, seeing or sight or awareness itself, to see that as an inherent logos of the self, only by making analogy or likeness comparisons to the other sets, the greater and the lesser, to discover similar terms, to see what was always there to be seen about the self that would not have come to light without this tool of analogy. As you would not have seen the comforting nature of the fog or the obscuring nature of the cloak without making that analogous comparison. Only we can make it across 3 sets. What happens if you don't have any reference to the self, just beliefs, the death and destruction, pain and misery that follows in yourself, your relationships, our institutions, societies, and species, if we allow belief to rule? The bliss, beauty, justice, excellence, and mastership that you get in yourself, relationships, society, species, institutions, if you have the greater, and comparing both analogously to the self, to discover a logos that you can't experience because it's not an experience. You can experience the pain and misery of human reincarnation, suffering through belief. You can experience the bliss, mastership, and joy of knowing in that brilliant light experience. Can't experience the self because it's the thing having the experience. Therefore, the only way to learn about the self may be through understanding. And the tool of understanding, analogy. And step-by-step guided reflection on analogy through the dialectic, asking of questions. Therefore, is all of this for the sake of, in the interest of, discovering, learning about the nature of yourself? That is the awareness that could be aware of either the greater or the lesser. That's my question for you. Well, that's our question that we have discovered together. Aren't we doing well? Aren't we doing well up in here? Interesting? What does the book say? While not expressing sameness alone in these two invitendo across the room to grab the upside down Nintendo. While not expressing sameness alone, it expresses a similarity called likeness, and this combines both in a way that sends echoes back to each of the terms. Therefore, can we see something about the self in both our false beliefs and problems and our excellence and mastership, the same way that both may be serving a purpose for us to discover or send echoes back to the self, which is beyond experience, awareness, or seeing itself. The idea of likeness is a principle in metaphysics. The study of metaphysics requires that you allow yourself to explore ideas in a new way. Has this been a new way of exploring? Have you had to allow yourself to wonder in this way that might be against your family tradition or religious tradition? But fuck them. That's just old caveman shit passed on through imitation. That's the sickness of the lesser. Good for you. You are the best.
Why do you need 50 bananas? So
Right.
many bananas.
So many, but 50 bananas is so many bananas. That's also true. Thank you so much.
I'm just thinking about being hot.
Not right now, Emma. Calm down.
Gooners.
This is said to be simple and difficult. Simple because as you reflect on each of the points in a metaphysical exploration, they should be simple. These are simple ideas. One and many, same and different. It's the most simple. The most simple way of thinking is two things being compared, or comparing relationships, two relationships being compared. And we're going right back to the beginning, which is also the ending. It's our goal to know the self. Should be simple. But the simple for the wise may not be the simple for the fool. Ooh. The fool's simplicity might become wise if he would endure this study of the simple. But the fool's foolishness is in believing that doing that is foolish. So you're not foolish.
I'm so unsettled. I am so unsettled.
No, don't be unsettled. You're not foolish.
The woman? Ugh.
Hey, don't say woman.
You probably want to put your grandma in the basement.
No, stop. Okay. So, we are not fools. We are,
You are beautiful and everybody
Beautiful.
loves you.
and everybody loves us now because we are going through or enduring the study of the simple and giving rise, understanding itself, understanding how understanding works, understanding how we can understand the two things we are here to address and master, the lesser and the greater, the false beliefs about self and reality, and the direct experience of reality, and understanding the self. And how it may require an unfolding of one into many so that there can be same and difference, so that there can be likeness, so we can make these comparisons and see that which might not have come to light that would have been there the whole time have we not made analogous comparisons. That could be the purpose for existence itself in principle, if understanding is as good as it's seeming to be. Worth doing? Lots of fun? Do we have wacky sound drops that's fun for everyone?
This is why I love this channel, man.
That's why we all love this
I
channel.
want to see the gorilla pack.
No, gorilla
Off the
picking.
perky, homie Kirky.
We're all off the perky. Call us all Kirky. We're having a great time. I hope you're having a great time. Thank you for joining me. I do appreciate it. Thank you for the chatters that stopped in. If you want to donate to the channel, there is a link. If you want the text that we are reading, there's a PDF link below as well. You're welcome to join the Discord. You'll get a notification when we go live. Feel free to stop in and yeah. Oh, everything we've been learning about making those comparisons across sets of terms that you can find in any system apply to your dreams. As you look at your dreams tonight or tomorrow or today, can you find a set of terms? Pull them out, write them down. Can you therefore hierarchically arrange them? As you seek that activity, you'll have to be discovering that you must be referring to some ideal. So in that process, you are deriving or coming to an ideal of that set that allows that hierarchy. Can you find within the dream a clue as to what it might be a metaphor for in the other set? Can you then fill out the missing terms that the dream isn't giving you? Therefore, as the terms in one set play out their relationship in a story or allegory, it's not a parable, that's Jesus's thing. You are given the solution or the key to solving that puzzle within the dream somewhere itself. You may need someone to ask you questions. That's good. They can practice the dialectic. What are their questions going to be? to help you unlock the analogies within the dream or the text itself. So the dialectic is a set of questions to guide you to seeing these analogies and working through the activity or the treatment over time in the dream talk to put them together for yourself, which is a movement into understanding and making your own mind. If you can see the analogy the dream maker is using, your mind is similar or becoming more like the mind of the dream maker. And what have we said? The more you become similar and like, the less different you become, the closer you become to that ideal that even your dream maker shares. Try it on your dreams and try the questions. See if you can figure out your own way and a fun way of asking questions to bring the analogies to light. You can start by arranging the terms of what you can see and then looking for a key. There might be something that stands out that gives you a clue into what the other set might be. Once you got one term, figure out the rest and then see how the story talks about the relationships to say what the dream might be telling you about either what are the three things it could be telling you about? Your lesser, your false beliefs that are causing your problems, which is the most common. The greater, something that you are doing well in or can see, or an enlightenment experience. And maybe some dreams can even compare those two things or your insight into these two things and compare it one more. So, hey, you know how you had seen this in a previous dream or done some midwifery to discover this belief about what's lesser? You know how you've done this work in your reading or direct experiences or previous dreams about the direct experience or understanding of the greater? Here's another analogy to the self. What else could they be about? There isn't anything else. What else is there? These are the three talking about sets. In reality, those are the three sets that human beings engage in. You're either seeking to move from the lesser to the greater. That's called anagogic movement, using analogy to move upward. Or you are further entrenching yourself in your problems. That's the only two things we can do. And dreams, so that what you've been learning about analogy from this text, you can use to your dreams to move anagogically. Good luck. I hope you have fun. So, have fun. And I hope to see you in the next one.